This is Lee the Appraiser from the world-famous APR57 gallery here in New York City. We are here to present you with a very, very interesting find. It is a piece of Judaica. And what is Judaica? Judaica typically means that it is a material piece, something that was used to perform or have an interest in the Judaic religion, the Jewish religion. And it was typically used to perform a mitzvah, a commandment of one of the biblical obligations that Orthodox Jews did or still do to commemorate and to follow certain traditions and commandments. We had somebody who came in with a number of very interesting items that he had bought from an estate. Out of all the pieces he had, this was the one that intrigued me the most. It certainly wasn't the most valuable. He had pieces that were tens of thousands of dollars, but anything Judaica I really like, and this was one of the coolest things that not only he brought in, but one of the coolest Judaica pieces I've ever seen. It looks like basically a standard big, maybe cup with a cover on it. The metal looks like tarnished silver. I would have to say, after more careful inspection, it's probably brass, all right? And it has the toning and the aging on it. And to me, when I first saw it, it looked like maybe a couple hundred years old. If you look closely on it, you will see that there's different stones that have been embedded on the surface of the piece. You have what appear to be some diamond chips, some sapphire round stones. On the top here, you can see what appears to be some emeralds, square emeralds. See here, you got some pearls here, and they got some pearls on the top there. If you look closely at this here, you will see this looks like a crown here on the top, sort of like maybe a Torah crown, a crown for the Torah, which is basically the book of the 5 books of Moses. You have some this looks like maybe some French or Spanish small writing there. And anyhow, it looks like a very big, ornate, heavy cup. So you look at closer inspection, you see it on the bottom here. It says there, Lahadlik Ner, Shel Shabbos. And then on the bottom here, it says Lahadlik Ner Shel Chanukah. Hanukkah, what could be more apropos than the Festival of Lights, which is happening right now? We're in the middle of it. It's on the 5th day of the lighting of Hanukkah. Very interesting. Okay, and then they have some other engraving of like the Torah scrolls with the 2 lions on the side. So let's open it up and see what we find in it. Okay. So let's see here. What do we got in here? So now it appears that we just have the Jewish word for it is called becher, which is a special cup that one uses on the Sabbath typically to make the blessings on wine. A lot, not all, but a lot of the Jewish blessings are made over wine. It has extra significance because wine is considered the holiest beverage. It was used during the time of the Bible in the temple. So a lot of the commandments are done in conjunction with a blessing on wine. Off the top of my head, we say the Sabbath blessing. We welcome into Sabbath twice for the Friday night and Saturday afternoon on a cup of wine. One of the more famous ones is when they have circumcision of a young boy after the 8th day. It's called the bris, the circumcision, the covenant with God and the Jewish people. That is done over a cup of wine. In fact, the Moel, which is the one that does the circumcision, in fact, dips his finger typically in the cup and gives it to the baby boy. And in many cases you'll see it soothes the boy. He has something to suck on, and the flavor, and of course the alcohol helps. So that blessing is done. Another famous one is done when people, the future man and woman, when they get married, they have under the chuppah. It's under the small little, what they call like covering tent. When that happens, the rabbi makes the blessings, and that's done under a cup of wine, and they give both the future husband and wife a sip of the cup of wine. when one blesses, the benching that's done with. So there's a lot of different things that are done on wine. Anyhow, but this is awfully big, really awfully big to be considered a regular cup. I mean, if I had to guess, this looks like maybe 25 ounces. So it's well over the requirement typically, which is like 4 ounces. So this is huge. But let's go further and see what we can find here. So now we have second here. What do we have here? Let's open this up a little bit. Whoa. So what do we have here? So we take this out here. It looks like we have another cup. Now this gets more puzzling. What is this? We also have engraving here of the 10 Commandments. And with the 10 Commandments we have, it looks like about a rectangular carat emerald. Again, this looks like you'd say gold-plated brass, probably, is what it feels like. Oh, baby. And what we got here, they got a picture of the menorah, again, the Hanukkah candles, or it could be, it's actually not Hanukkah, because it's 7. And you have the 2 lions holding it, and if you can read that there in Hebrew, that says, Borei Peri Hagofen. So that's the blessing on the wine. So I look at this piece here, and it has beautiful engraving throughout. And if you look at it closely, you'll see actually the plating, or the gold plating that's been worn off on the top here. So that probably has to do with the fact that this could have been silver, perhaps, plated gold. And when it is rubbing against the inner sides of the top and bottom, it probably wore off there. I always like to figure out if something is broken, if there's a problem with it, or a damage, or something like that, how it came about. So that's a pretty cool thing. That's how I would say this. This is really exceptionally engraved. It was actually engraved and then re-put on here, so you can see the thickness on it from the sides. It's probably about 3 millimeters in height, and it was probably soldered on there. Very cool. Whenever you look for details on items, the legs are very important. You want to see you want to see very beautiful detailed engraved legs. That's especially true with like early French furniture and things like that. That's what they look for. So now we have a cup here that is still a lot. I mean, one would have to be pretty hold their liquor, like to say, to drink a cup of this on hard alcohol or wine. But this is a little more realistic thing. So inside, of course, it says here, it says Shabbos Kodesh, which is the holiness of the Sabbath. That makes more sense now. And in fact, you look closely again, you'll see the 2 hands there. And those 2 hands are actually signify the blessing of the high priest. He's holding his hands like this, which we typically don't do, but that blessing is called the Birchos Kahanim, the blessing of the high priest. And the custom is today on the 3 high holidays, on Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, that the priest give a blessing to the congregation at that time. They used to give the blessing to all of the Jews in Jerusalem at that time. So they actually sing, which is very cool. So that shows there the Sabbath. It shows there the thing there, the symbol of the Kohanim, the high priest, making the blessing, and it says Shabbos HaKodesh. So with all those inferences, it's clear to me that this was the Shabbos cup. So this was the cup that was used for the wine on the Sabbath. Okay, so on Passover, we use a cup like this, and that's considered, we use that at the end of the Seders, that the process that we use, we read the book of the Haggadah. So after the meal, we have a cup that we put out for that everybody on their table puts out, one on the table typically, and it's called the Kos of Eliyahu, the Kos for Elijah, the prophet, and we want to welcome him in to bless us. And the typical custom is to take a large cup, or one of the nicest cups that the family has, and fill it up with wine, with the understanding, hopefully, and the idea that this is going to be in tribute to the prophet Eliyahu. In that frame of mind, we fill up the cup and we get the nicest cup, and that's, in my belief, what this is. So this piece, this was made for Sabbath to use. This was the cup that was used for Kos Eliyahu on Passover. Okay, cool. So now, what do we have here? So this actually, if you look closely at the engraving here, you have engraving, it looks like a wreath of grapes, right? On the top and on the bottom here. So it looks like it says Raphael If I had to guess, that would be the name of the person. Typical in Judaism, they would name somebody after their father. So it would be Chaim ben Yosef. That's how they called it. Not only named him, but they would call the person Chaim ben Yosef. Or they might say about they might have his name and the city he came from. So, when they talk about somebody like that, they would say from that specific town. So that would be his identifying mark. Here you have, so this is very interesting. You have a picture of a king, or what appears to be a king in a crown, riding through the streets. It looks like a jester with a hat on it, and so that appears there's a holiday where that was significant. You had a king, you had a jester, and that's the holiday of Purim. Interesting enough. So what could this be? What would be in this possible group of items that would pertain to Purim? And look at this here. We have a scroll, a huge scroll. What means to say in English that this is here in the time, in the days of Achashverosh, who was the king in Persia. So that obviously was the king. This is the jester. And so this is the original scroll. Well, it's not the original scroll. It's a original scroll that we read on the holiday of Purim. And the entire scroll, this is all written by hand. It's all written on real parchment and put together the way it should be. And this is a very holy piece of paper. And it's not actually paper, it feels like parchment. It's all handwritten. And it appears, again, the appearance is that this is a couple hundred years old. It's all, if you can get closely in here, you'll see the hand stitching of the parchment to the metal tab that one uses to pull out. So this is just very, very cool. I mean, the amount of work that went on to this. I mean, just writing one of these can take months and months and cost thousands and thousands of dollars just to write one of these. And anyhow, so it has some original staining over the years, et cetera, et cetera. Just a very, very cool thing. So what do we have here? We've covered the Sabbath. We covered a piece here for Passover. We covered here, which is Purim, which is very cool because it's not a holiday that is typically observed nationwide. So it's very cool that a smaller holiday has the significance of the entire scroll on top here. So you look at this a little closer, and I always like to inspect things carefully. You got some pearls here, and it looks like this piece maybe comes off. We open it up here, and you have a little smell here. So what this is, something goes in here. So the one Jewish area that one uses spices for scents is on Saturday evening. It's called the Havdalah, which is the prayer service that we say goodbye to the Sabbath on Saturday night. So the custom is that when you make the blessing over a cup of wine, that you smell some spices and you say a separate blessing for that. And the reason is because we believe that on the Sabbath we have a special soul that's dictated and designated just for the Sabbath. And when the Sabbath is over, the soul leaves us. So for us to feel both a little physically and spiritually better, the smelling of something special and unusual will allow us to, basically the single soul that we still have will allow us to be stronger and not survive, but live, feel better and be able to accept the fact that our spiritual soul left Saturday evening. So that's the custom here, okay? Now, two things. One is that when you make the blessing on the Havdalah, which, it's an important thing, but you wouldn't necessarily assume that we're going to call it the Swiss Army knife of Judaica that does everything. We wouldn't necessarily expect that they would have something for the Havdalah because that's not like a major holiday like Passover. However, and it's not even a major Jewish law like Kiddush. But you do have something for Kiddush. You have, and it appears that you could use the cup for Kiddush. You need to make it the Havdalah over a cup of wine as well. So you have the cup, you have the spices, But now we have a problem here. What's the problem? The problem is we're missing, there's also a custom that after the Sabbath, that since we don't use, anyone that knows this, that you don't use you don't use electricity or turn on lights. There's a ban of electricity for another reason, which we'll get into in a different time. So we light typically a candle with 2 wicks to signify the fact that also the Sabbath is leaving us, and the fact that the entire Sabbath we did not use electricity. So where is the candles? Where is the place to light the candles? So I looked high and low for this. I couldn't figure it out. And then also over here, if you look carefully, we stated over here as well, it says Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbos and Shel Chanukah. So why would it have that engraving there talking about the Lahadlik Ner, means lighting the candles for the Sabbath and lighting the candles for Hanukkah, for the holiday of Hanukkah, if you didn't have a place to do it? So after careful inspection, I found the answer to my dilemma. And that has to do with the bottom piece here. This is so cool. So this actually separates, and now you have, it's been filled in, I guess, many, many years ago, but now you have, quote, a candle stand. So when this piece was originally out of there, or it probably can be pulled out, you can then stick a candle on top here. So now you have all the things you need for the Havdalah, the separation of Sabbath service. You have the cup to hold the wine, you have the spice to smell, and you have the candle to check the light and to say goodbye to the Sabbath. So you actually have everything for the Sabbath. And I'll go one step further, Lahadlik Ner, the lighting of the Hanukkah candles. You can actually use this to put a Hanukkah candle in there as well. So you have everything you need here, the all-in-one Jewish Swiss Army knife, that you have the things you need for the Sabbath, to honor the Sabbath, all the things you need for the prayer service to say goodbye to the Sabbath. You have the big cup for the kos, the cup of Eliyahu. You have the candles for the incoming of the Sabbath. That means the blessing of the Sabbath. We bless candles. So you have that, and then you have the Hanukkah candles to say the blessing on Hanukkah, and then of course the piece de resistance, the original scroll and menorah and scroll for the Purim tradition that we read the story of Purim. It's called Megillas Esther, the very long parchment. Even if you do it really fast, it's a lot of pages here. It would take at least half an hour. And so there you have it, an all-in-one Judaica Swiss Army knife, everything you need to honor the holidays in one little package here. My understanding, again, this looks like it's several hundred years old. After doing some research, I think it's only probably maybe about 80 years old, but this is really an incredible find, an incredible piece, and I haven't seen anything like it. So if you guys out there have any other interesting Judaica items that you perhaps want to sell, appraise, evaluate, we love to see it. We'll buy it, appraise it for you, tell you whatever you need to know, and help you in that regard. And anything else of value, jewelry, watches, art, antiques, you can just call or text us at APR57.com or 917-439-9610. And again, till next time, we'll sign off and hope to see you again soon.